Perfect. I think we are live and ready to go. So, hi everyone. It's bang on 2 o'clock. Thanks for joining this latest LinkedIn Live here at Thrive. I'm Danny from Thrive, but today I'm kindly joined by Sophy Green from Affinity Workforce and Meg Stickland from AMA Group, who have kindly agreed to talk all about their success since launching Thrive earlier in the year. So both launched relatively recently as well. So Sophy and Meg, do you want to firstly introduce yourselves, let people know a little bit about yourselves, your roles, and the organisations that you work for? Sophy, do you want to go first?
Sure, yeah. So I'm Sophie. I work for Affinity Workforce, which is an education recruitment company. So we have four businesses, which is CER, Monarch Education, Sugarman Education, and Career Teachers. And I run the learning and development department for all four recruitment businesses.
Perfect. And Meg, do you want to introduce yourself? Oh, I can't hear you, Meg.
Hi.
There you
We
go.
can now.
There we go. So I'm Meg, and very similar to Sophie, I run L&D for AMA Group, which is Milk Education, Aspian, Advocate, MLK, and then we have our charity Make Life Kind as well.
Perfect. Amazing. Thanks for that. And today's session, essentially for everybody who's joining, is going to be really casual conversation with Megan and Sophie, talking through their implementation journey, how they've incorporated things like competitions into their approach and driven over 90% engagement across their organisations since launching Thrive as well. They've both very kindly agreed to show some of their platforms throughout this session. So they will be sharing their screens and showing a little bit of their systems and how they're using it as well. We would love to answer any questions that you might have throughout the session. So again, if you've joined, please feel free to ask away in the chat bar on the right-hand side, and we will do our absolute best to answer them all as they come through. I'll try to keep track of that as and when we get any questions, Sophie and Meg as well. However, what better place to start than right at the beginning, I guess. I'd love to understand, to begin with, what made you start this journey around looking for a new LMS in the first place? I don't know, Megan, do you want to start with this one?
I mean, it was really simple for me because I needed everything in one place. I'm part of a new department, and I needed to be able to read what was actually being valuable to everyone that was either watching content or downloading content. Unfortunately, the platform that we were with previously didn't have that reporting mechanism. So that's what I needed first and foremost. And knowing that at the moment it is just me within that department, I needed it to be something that was easy and intuitive for me, who doesn't necessarily have LMS, IT expertise. It needed to make sense for where I would click and what I would do. And because of that, just the language that a lot of different platforms use, I found so alien to like the language that I would use day to day. Whereas Thrive made sense for me. It was one-stop shop, everything in one place, all the brands, reporting, and it feels almost like social media. So the buttons that are there make sense for what it does and why it's there.
Yeah, 100%. I definitely think that people's experiences and their expectations that they have around their learning experience has definitely risen over the last few years. So that modern, engaging user interface is coming up all the time around want something simple, want something easy to use and familiar as well. Sophie, was yours a similar reason why you were going out to the market, or was it slightly different?
Yeah, literally. I mean, Megan could literally be, that could be my answer. Like, we were exactly the same. You know, I was new to L&D, and we really wanted something where I could house documents, but also kind of have that one-stop kind of place where everybody could go to and kind of find policies and procedures or kind of general processes. And we similar kind of had a LMS within our businesses that that we were looking at, and I'd looked at other kind of learning platforms as well. And what I've found, similar to what Meg said, you know, really difficult, was that the language was completely different. Like, I'm not that tech savvy, that's not kind of my job. And so I needed something that I didn't need an IT degree to use, and I also wanted that for our users, for the people within our business. I wanted it to be easy for them to use, so that the engagement was going to be high. Because as soon as, you know, something's quite difficult to access, I was worried that people would go, well, I don't know how to use that, and actually I don't want to learn how to use it. It's a little bit too difficult, so I'm therefore not going to engage with it. And that is what I loved about the product, that I picked it up really quickly, so I know other people would. But yeah, very similar, kind of just wanted one place to house documents and learning that was simple to use.
Perfect. And in the end, is that why you ended up going with Thrive, Sophie? Are there any kind of particular areas that stood out for you? And for anybody who's attending, do you have any kind of hints and tips, especially throughout that procurement process? Because procurement processes now can be quite tedious, quite lengthy, quite rigorous as well, looking at lots of different platforms. Is there anything that you'd really shout out about in terms of anything you'd recommend for people who are looking for a new platform at the moment?
Yeah, sure. So like I said, I'd kind of gone out to market with a few different companies and had a few different demos. And I think, you know, I'd obviously met you, Danny, originally, and just liked I genuinely liked how simple it was. It wasn't overcomplicated. I think a lot of the kind of, I suppose, like lessons that I'd had or tutorials that they give, it made me feel like I was completely out of my depth, because I'm not IT savvy, like I say. So whereas I didn't with Thrive, I felt like actually that could be really easy to use. Like, I felt like building the product would be quite easy. I could really see how our content could fit into it and how we could adapt it. I loved kind of like the Instagram feel to it, like the liking and sharing and commenting. It really captured up, you know, our audience. We've got quite a young workforce, and I quite liked that for them. I thought that's going to be interesting, and it's going to be something familiar. They're going to look at it and see it as something familiar that they probably use in their everyday life anyway. In terms of kind of the first procurement process, I think it was overwhelming at first. Of, you know, you're in this situation. I was on my own, so it was kind of like, how am I going to build all of this? And you know, you think back, if I knew kind of now, or then, sorry, what I know now, you know, you would change the process, definitely. But I think just kind of not trying to build Rome in a day. You do not need thousands of pieces of content on that platform immediately. You know, that phased approach absolutely worked for us. We put the new starter induction on there first because it was a priority. And then we put the policies and procedures that we needed people to sign or to, like, straight away. And that was just phase one. And even that, to be fair, I think I put a lot of pressure on myself to get so much content on there as quickly as possible. But thinking back, you know, now, you know, I'd probably do it the same, but I'd probably put less pressure on myself to create all this new content. You know, the content hub that Thrive provides, with all the, you know, the content that's available, to use that more, to lean into that more, because it's there for you. And the content's fantastic, and it's, you know, interactive. There's loads of different ways that you can get people to engage, whether it's participation, listening, watching, you know, there's so many different ways. So I think, yeah, just kind of not trying to do everything all at once. Just think of like one or two things that you want somebody to, you know, you want your learners to engage in first, and then think about that journey of kind of how you're going to continue engagement through the process.
Yeah, I could probably apply that to a lot of things in life. Try not to do it all at once. So good advice for procuring a new platform, but also lots of other things as well. And Meg, is there anything in particular that you found throughout that procurement process that you'd recommend?
For me, again, you could copy and paste our answers, but yeah, I don't feel like I used enough of the content hub until after we launched. Whereas, to your point, Sophie, you feel like you've got to launch with this perfect idea of your platform, and that just isn't realistic. And you're going to want people to explore it. And if it does have thousands of pieces of content in there anyway, it's going to be overwhelming for everyone. So I wish that I did use the content hub earlier on. And also, in hindsight, this was during a period of change and new hires within our company, and I don't feel like it would have. I feel like we could have like maybe shifted our times and not put that pressure on ourselves during like having the 11 weeks, you know, like just push it back another couple of weeks, and then that we would have not had that on our shoulders. But overall, the weekly training, going through everything step by step, what each button does, how it works. I know that for a lot of people who work in tech, that might have been like really patronizing and a bit too much, but for me, I needed like an idiot's guide. I needed it to be like that. So I really like that. I've still got loads of notes from it, and I still have to go back on bits when I come back round to them, but I found it really, really useful.
And I guess that does lead on to what I was going to ask next around like your approach to actually launching the platform. Again, I think you both took quite a similar approach to this around, did you do a bit more of a phased approach around that, or did you try and do this big bang launch kind of, this is perfection and we're going to start with it from the beginning? From obviously what you've mentioned in your previous answers, it sounds like you've done a bit more of a phased approach. Is that right from your side, Meg, at AMA?
It was more big bang, like we did. Everyone knew that this was coming. It is our launch on Google Chrome as well, so it's everyone's landing page on there. So it been in conversation. So what we did was we had a big launch, and then we did a roadshow where we went around all of the different offices. Any excuse for a little bit of fizz, you know, sit down with everyone. And it really worked as well because that was at the same time as the Euros were going on. So we were changing the platform every day to be like, what do you think the score is going to be? How do you think? So just to pull people in to engage with it in a slightly different way. I think what I would change again, so if you, just as you were saying, you can't not do these things and think, what would I do differently? When we did launch was in July, which for education recruitment, you know, that you've got 2 weeks left of everyone being really, really busy, and then they're going to split up for the 6 weeks holidays, and then that's a different bag. So I think like more time of year, we could have been a little bit more strategic with, but other than that, it worked really well, and then gave me a little bit more figures for when we came back to do competitions and things like that in the September.
Yeah, I love that. Hindsight is definitely a wonderful thing once you've once you've done something, and I love the fact that you pulled in like things around the Euros to really help like drive engagement and drive people into the platform to begin with. Sophie, did you take a similar approach around kind of a big bang launch, or did you do more of a phased rollout?
Yeah, so we did a bit of both actually. Again, copy and paste what Megan said, but we did kind of a little kind of lead up to it where we actually kind of soft launch. So we called ours Affinity Link, and so we did Affinity Link champions. We met with those first. We kind of soft launched it with them, got their opinions, created a bit, you know, like of a mastery team of, you know, they knew how to use it then. And we did that in each of our office locations, because the thing I feared most was me being the kind of, you know, the person with all the knowledge and actually not being able to get to, you know, Newcastle, Derby, all the other offices, Birmingham, all of the time, and then people just not using it because they're not knowing how to use it. So we picked a person from each branch and they were our champions, and we soft launched it with them the week before. Did a little survey, I think it was 2 weeks before actually, did a survey, asked them what they thought of it and got some feedback. So we really wanted everybody to feel involved and it be their product. You know, this is for your learning, your development. This is for you, it's yours. So you tell us what you want to see next. And we've kind of continued that theme throughout. And then we did this, you know, big launch again, a bit of fizz, and we had flyers, and we did a challenge. So we really wanted people to use like the commenting field, likes and shares, and initially like we just wanted people to log in, so we took it really basic. So we're like, just log in, then upload your photo. Then we did, in fact, if I'm just going to share my screen if that's okay, and I'll just quickly show you the checklist that we did.
Yeah, perfect.
Fab. So this is the checklist here. So we did week 1, welcome to Affinity Link. So let's get you started, add your profile picture, create a bio telling us a little bit about yourself. So really basic stuff. Week 2, so we rolled out campaigns which had content with it. So we used the Content Hub actually quite a bit for this. So personal development, we took a few pieces of content from the hub and we rolled them out each day. So each day, the audience or our learners were getting emails saying, have a look at this new content, and then they were having to engage with it in order to get points. And you can see at the top it says your lucky winners get half a day's annual leave for the whole week completed, and then a bespoke luxury hamper at the end for the most points. So we use the reporting system to show the most points for most engagement. And we did sustainability, health and well-being. And the final push was about finding like the rocket emoji. So again, like people having to go into content and actually physically find things. But yeah, like that really worked. And I think, it brought a bit of a fun element. There was a competition. Everyone loves a bit of a freebie, whether it's annual leave or a luxury hamper. And that did work. And just getting everyone logged in and then being able to lean on those champions and ring them and say, X, Y, and Z hasn't logged in. Can you just check they know how to use the system? Can you make sure they're logged in? And I think that's what made it successful, having those people to kind of push on because they volunteered to be the champions in the first place.
Yeah, 100%. People, like you said, love a competition. They
Yeah.
love freebie. I love the bespoke luxury hamper for the winner as well. And how have you gone about driving engagement since then, Sophie? So obviously that was really focused around launch, like keeping it simple, like bringing people into the system. How have you gone about driving engagement moving forward? And did you find that this really helped then bring people back into the system quite naturally?
Yeah, so I think phase 2 for us was kind of like launching an intranet, so making it that place where you had to, all our final documents. So whether that be like reference templates, policies, procedures, like any processes, and I'll show you kind of our explore pages. So you can see our kind of intranet. So there's like lots of different titles, but this is where all our training is: Affinity Academy, our benefits, all the different brands are in here. And you can, there's stuff like marketing in there, even email signatures, anything we use for social media. And it kind of goes through so many different areas. So we really have made it a place where if you need something, that is where you have to go. We've also continued to run weekly and probably a little bit less now, probably like monthly campaigns. So if I show you our homepage, at the moment, it's all about our Affinity Extra product, which is a product that we have kind of cashback rewards on for both our candidates as well as our internal staff. And again, like engagement wise, we use it to celebrate success. So you can see here one of our businesses, Ricky, he's won an award this week. Somebody else, Esme, our CEO, is running a webinar. So that goes on there and you have to click on that link in order to sign up. And then I'm doing a new lunch and learn sessions each week. So again, you have to go on it to sign up. So we've kind of used it as a place where you can't go anywhere else. Unless you go on Affinity Link, you can't sign up, you won't find the information. But that is working. It is working. I looked at some stats and we've got kind of 75% or nearly in the last 14 days using. In the last 30, it's 82%. So we're still driving that engagement just through regular content, really.
Nice. I love that. And Meg, have you taken a similar approach in terms of driving engagement? I think you've used competitions as well, haven't you?
Yeah, I mean, if there's one way to recruiters' heart, it is finding something that they can win. So it needs to be useful. But one of the issues that I was having was that people were using the homepage and campaigns, but not necessarily like exploring elsewhere within the platform. So that's what I used the competition for in September. Like I said, they've come back from any of the holidays that anyone could have been on. And they had the opportunity to win Becky Hill tickets. So a great prize. And I hid little pathways around in different tiles on our explore page, our campaign banner. So I'm just going to share my screen and show you a couple of like what these pathways could be. So they're relevant for any department, any brand, doesn't matter what sector that they're in. And I kept it super simple. And the idea was that they would know that this would be a competition pathway because there was almost nothing else written there. Once they'd completed the pathway, you can see here that I've got 3 shares. They could enter again if they shared that with someone else. And then on section 4, it was you get another entry if you share your own content. So I got user-generated content from it. I got people using the platform in different ways and loads of engagement. We have just over 100 users on our platform, and this one module got over 88 views. So wow. I knew that it was working, but people were finding it in all these different ways. I did have to create like stealth profiles because people started realizing where they could track my own profile from. But yeah, we just had really, I hate to say generic, but your soft skills. So it was applicable for everyone. What I saw off the back of that was, so this was around when we launched. In fact, this was the week that we launched. This was the week after. What was interesting, and this is why I love the platform as well, to get me these instant results. This is the week after we announced the winner. So people were still using the platform even after the competition had been and gone. So it showed that they were able to use the platform in a different way. They knew where to go. They knew what else would be out there, whereas that wasn't realised, especially during that 6 weeks. And if you look here, when you're thinking about your social media parts, the shares and comments and likes that I got off the back of that were amazing. So I will be doing competitions in future. I will be using this again. But it was amazing to see the results off the back of what would be a great prize for anyone.
Yeah, I love that. I love the hidden pathways. That I think the hook is really important, because I think obviously learners come from more traditional learning management systems where they just go in, they complete their mandatory training, and that's it. They don't need to go back for a year or 2 years when that needs refreshing. So actually, when you launch a new platform, I think that hook is really important. Like, why is it important for the individual to keep coming back, and what's in it for them, essentially around their development? And obviously, you've mentioned there around soft skills. It's relevant for everyone. They can learn new things. They can progress themselves as individuals as well. And Meg, I know you've worked at other organisations other than in recruitment. From a competitions standpoint, and for anybody who's on this call who might not work for a recruitment agency, do you think competitions are very much specific within recruitment? Because as you say, anybody within recruitment loves a leaderboard, they like competition. Or do you think it works generally across L&D?
I think, yeah, across L&D, you're always going to have, when you talk about L&D, you talk about personality colours, you're always going to have someone in any business that is going to be competitive. And I think that you've got to play on everyone's different learning types and what gets them excited about trying something new as well. I've always worked in sort of sales companies, but a competition, you can use it to drive the behavior rather than just the result. So don't think of it as just like, okay, we've got Becky Hill tickets up for grabs. We've got Becky Hill tickets up for grabs, and I've now got all of this user generated content, which now needs its own tile on the explore page.
Yeah, I mean, I think Becky Hill tickets would drive engagement to absolutely anything, to be fair. So I think you've nailed the prize there as well. And from a communications standpoint and like information sharing, Meg, I know, Sophie, you touched on this around that explore page where it acts as like your intranet or a SharePoint in terms of this is where you come for absolutely any information. Meg, have you started using Thrive in that way yet? Is that in your plans moving forward?
Yeah, it is our full one-stop shop. So at the moment, we've got banners on there for our Christmas parties. Same thing with promotions, questions, what you're doing with your charity days. So the homepage for us is when you think about your social media homepage, like you have got your learning modules on there, but people are going there for, you know, IT help, sharing success. What do I wear to the Christmas party? Like they're going there for those kind of answers. So I use the homepage for social engagement, and then beyond that will be for when you think of strategic learning.
And a question for both of you, actually. Have you noticed that since launching Thrive, you've really kind of raised the reputation of L&D across your organizations? I mean, Sophie, I think obviously from working with you and what you've mentioned before, I think you've won awards internally since launching Thrive for the work that you've done. Have you seen like a real rise in L&D across the organization?
Yes, well, I was obviously new to, we didn't have an L&D department at all. So that's, I think L&D generally was something that, you know, was needed. And I think, you know, I think it was great, you know, at a recent conference, our chairman kind of spoke a lot about L&D and how it had changed within our business, and, you know, said some really lovely things about kind of, you know, the product and what we'd created, and that was really nice. But also, like, we did lots of shout outs during the conference where, you know, it was mentioned a lot how much kind of L&D, and I suppose, you know, myself personally, but also like just L&D generally had changed like within the landscape of what we'd known it as before. And, you know, offering candidate CPD, but also kind of having an induction and having somewhere where managers can go and pick up content and deliver it to their teams, and be like, right, I don't know, I need to teach somebody how to write an advert. I'm going to go, right, how do you write an advert? Picking that piece of content up and then delivering it, whereas we didn't have that before. And I think it's, you know, it's made people's lives easier generally within, you know, within our company. And it's, I mean, it's been a really steep learning curve, don't get me wrong, but it has been a really fantastic journey, you know, to see people now using it, and it's something like I'm massively proud of, the product and where we've taken it, and really we've only touched the surface. We really have, like, there's so much more, like we don't even use the app yet, there's so much more that we can do, and there's so much more products and, you know, development that Thrive is constantly working on, that we see in the updates constantly. So actually it's, you know, it's a really exciting place to be, that actually we've launched something that is already working, but there's so much more to come, and that's really, really exciting. So yeah, for us, learning and development is actually now a thing within our business, and it wasn't at all. So yeah, I think the product has definitely helped move that along for certain.
Love that. And Meg, have you found a similar thing as well?
I've still got a long way to go. I don't want anyone to watch this and think that what they've got with L&D is like a finished article. And again, we'd had an L&D for like one of the brands, but not across the group. And so it's still very much in its infancy. What I've noticed is that people are wanting to use L&D to show off more, so that they'll come to it. And when I say show off, recruitment world, as in we can use this for promotions, which obviously a key part of going into recruitment, and coaching and sharing with others. So a lot of content they might send to me for me to upload, or they might ask me for my opinion. Whereas I would say, like, a few months ago, before I'd even launched Thrive, that conversation in itself would have never have happened. People wouldn't have wanted that opinion, or to know how that could have looked and felt, and how do we deliver this. But yeah, still a long way to go, but definitely seeing the right trajectory.
Yeah, 100%. I think that's the beauty of when you launch like a new piece of tech across the organization. I think you both said it throughout this, like when you launch, it's not the finished article, like things will change. And I think you've both said this outside of this webinar, like your platforms, even now, even though you've both launched this year, they probably look very different to when you actually launched the systems, which isn't a bad thing, by the way. Like, making different iterations of the system will continue to happen, and your systems will probably look different again in 6 to 12 months time. And Meg, you touched on user generated content within your pathways. Have you, outside of that, have you been utilizing kind of end user generated content on Thrive? Because I know perception of that can be different across organisations. Some people can be quite reluctant to post their own. But have you, outside of that, have you seen user-generated content being posted?
Yeah, I would say that I've got quite a lot of content now that is user-generated, that it's really seen as a benefit from top down as well. So we do have directors within the business that will share a key message, and then their first now actions are to go, right, let's get this on Thrive, let's make sure that people are watching this in the right way or engaging with this, which is the right kind of learning. Not everyone's going to learn on a 30-minute webinar, so it's creating end-to-end user experience and everyone understanding that sort of process. The main parts that came up as like user generated initially were like your typical links for podcasts and YouTube videos and all of that kind of thing, whereas now people are sharing more of here's a meeting that I attended or a call that I did, here's how it worked, here's I'm sharing it with you as an example. And they will share it with specific people, officers. So it is creating more of like a hive, and we're not getting as many siloed officers off the back of it as well.
Yeah, I guess it helps with like one person being asked the same question by multiple people. Like if they can get that answer into Thrive, actually it's there for everybody to go in and access at any point. Like they can search for it, they can find it, and like you say, act as that one-stop shop. So have you started with user-generated content just yet, or is that something that you're looking at?
Yeah, that's something that's going to come, I think, probably from a control point of view. Being a control freak, we were like, don't let anybody do anything to the system yet. So we basically launched as me and Hannah had access to everything, and it was more like an information giver. And then what we've kind of slowly, released the reins a little bit and said, okay, like you can have it, so we've given it to managers and said they now use it for things like your everyday stuff, so like rotas and again like uploading kind of most valuable players and promotions and celebrating success, and we've tried to recently really drive that kind of comment section, so saying to people, look, we want you to go on and make sure that you comment and say, congrats, well done, like good work, etc. But no, that is our next phase actually. So that's what we've been speaking about, is getting that user generated kind of, getting people more involved, letting them upload content as well. So yeah, that is coming for us. It's our next phase.
Nice. We've got lots of customers, just like Meg at AMA and other customers who have got some really good best practice that they can share with you around like launching user-generated content. So I'll take that one away from this session. We're just past past. I've got one other question just to ask you both. If there's anybody who's attending that wants to ask a question at this point, feel free to pop that in the chat. But mine is around looking forward and is more around what are you most excited about that's coming in the Thrive roadmap, which obviously we make visible to all of our customers. Is there anything in particular that you're really looking forward to seeing? Meg, we'll start with you on this one.
I've got two parts, and it links to what Sophie said earlier with profiles, adverts. Obviously, when you've got different brands, they'll all word things in a slightly different way. So for me, it's the intelligent search, the fact that I can then have something that will just pop up for everyone, and 100% Thrive link. Hoping to bring a lot of like the Teams chats eventually over into Thrive, so then again we've got even more of that one-stop shop.
Perfect, love that. And Sophie, what about you?
So for me, I know that you're doing a lot of work on the kind of AI generated content, which from a time perspective, particularly for people like myself and Meg, who are kind of, one-man bands and running departments on their own, that is great. So I've already kind of had a bit of a play around on our staging site, but yeah, I think that's really exciting. And I know that there's kind of more work and development coming with the pathways. And I think from a learning perspective, that's really important. The pathways are great, and being able to group content together. And I'm now using, so when we talk about changes to the system, I originally put the induction on kind of day 1, week 1 to 6 in the explore pages. So it was kind of people would go in and access separate pathways. Whereas actually what I've now changed, having a look at the engagement and thinking about how that actually works in practice, is there's now got one pathway that is assigned to a learner, and they then run through that pathway for the first 6 weeks. But it takes, everything takes time, and actually you put it into practice and you think, oh, actually that doesn't work. So yeah, that development of those pathways I think will be massive to my job. Outside of the intranet and just it holding documents, the learning bit for me is going to be huge. So yeah, that will really help.
Yeah, and I think that more AI will support all of that moving forward. I think just like both of your platforms, there's lots of different iterations for any functionality that we bring into the system. And obviously with AI and how fast it's growing, we'll be changing that as we move forward. And the exciting thing is that at our customer event next week, we're going to be releasing our 2025 roadmap. So I'm sure you'll see lots of new exciting things in there as well. So I'll have to ask you this question again probably at the end of the customer event next week. But that was it from me. I don't think we've got any burning questions in the chat. I found that really useful, so I'm so sure everybody who joined it did as well. Thanks for obviously joining, sharing parts of your platform, and just sharing the success, which is majorly obviously down to the work that both of you have done since implementation and launch of Thrive. So thank you for sharing that. Anybody who's joining, feel free to reach out if you have any questions, but I think we will call it there. So thanks, everyone.
Thanks, Danny.